want to talk about hypocrisy. The hypocrisy of the Remain or Remoaner camp. Whether you talk about the Lib Dems, whether you talk about Labour, whether you talk about just people that think that we should remain in the EU, in Britain today. Here's the hypocrisy. Theresa May, since November, has offered twice to let EU nationals stay in our country, and all she wants is the same rights given to the people in Europe today. That's all she asked for. Nothing more, nothing less. The EU have turned her down twice. Exactly, twice. Now, does the newspapers in the UK criticise the EU? No. Do they criticise Theresa May and the government? Yes. Do the EU nationals that come on TV, come on the radio, criticise the EU? No. Do they criticise Theresa May and the government? Yes. Do they criticise the people that had a democratic vote to leave the EU? Yes. Tell me the logic in that. Does that make sense to you? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. You see, it was the people that decided to leave the EU. It wasn't any government. In fact, the government were against us leaving the EU. Theresa May is doing what she's supposed to do, and she's going with what the people have actually voted for. The Conservative government, back in 2016, gave the choice to the people to whether to stay inside the EU or leave the EU. And the people decided to leave. But yet the government gets criticised for doing what the people wanted in the first place. But also gets criticised because the EU won't give EU nationals the right to stay here. But none of the papers or the media in general want to criticise the EU for not giving the rights to the British expats that live in Europe right now. I can't speak now, it's early in the morning. No criticising them at all. And when you speak to the Remainers or the Remoaners, they say, well, the EU didn't want us to leave, we decided to leave. And that's supposed to be their answer. That because we had a democratic vote and we left, it's our fault, so we have to do everything that they asked us to do. So we have to give them 100 billion, we have to go by all their rules and all their regulations, we have to give EU nationals more rights than British people in our own country. And you think it's right to criticise Theresa May and the government? Your logic is, well, there is none. The fact is that the British people decided to leave the EU, not the government. The government have offered the EU nationals to stay if the EU were back for expats to stay in Europe. But yet you still want to criticise our government when all we've tried to do is have a peaceful negotiation, be sensible, reasonable. But the EU want to act like children, but yet you want to criticise us. That's your logic, you brainwashed fools.